Welcome, everyone. We're really happy to have Andrea at the Business Sustainability Talk session. The whole aim of Business Sustainability Talks is to build open dialogue. It's to get sustainability leaders like Andrea to come share with us her learnings, her point of view on sustainability, and give us a platform to ask questions. So please participate actively. Don't hesitate to share your questions as we go along. But without much ado, I'll give it up to Andrea to introduce herself, to tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in sustainability.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, ladies. And thank you to the audience for dialing in and hopefully to listen to the recording. My name is Andrea Prazakova. I will turn now for here because before I speak to you, my name is Andrea Prazakova. I work for Mastercard. As you can see, I'm fully dressed in Mastercard colors. If you work for Mastercard, that's what happens to you on day one. You get a full pack of orange and red outfits. I hope you will join Mastercard just for that reason. I'm just making some jokes, but I'm looking after 3 areas in Mastercard. I'll look after Foundry, which stands for innovation. I look after sustainability and gaming. And today we will be talking about sustainability. And Amrita asked me, how did I end up in sustainability? And I think there's many things in our lives, things come to you and happen. And if you have an opportunity, you should just grab it and try something new. And I'm genuinely very curious. I'm a, constant learner. So about 2 years ago, one of my colleagues came and said, Andrea, do you want to look at sustainability on top of the work which you're doing in innovation? And I said, yes, why not? And it really, that's where the journey started. And I didn't stop since. I am also now pursuing certification as Chief Sustainability Officer at MIT. I completely expanded my network, and I have to say this is such a fascinating area. I don't know how I haven't been involved before, much heavier than now, but definitely, I think that's how I embarked. It's pretty recent. It's 2 years only, and I think that many people in the industry, obviously there are some oldies in it, but there is, because the industry is so new in a sense, right? There's a lot of people who came, majority are women as well, who care about not only our planet, but above and outside of the planet and ourselves.
Yeah, and I think very interesting link, the innovation link and sustainability, because it's very closely linked, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that one of the powers of Mastercard as an organization is to connect these dots, right? Because you can look at sustainability from a very close angle, right? You can, for somebody, if you talk about sustainability, we just think about tree planting, environment, right? But I think that as a technology company, and not only us, but many others, you can start to interconnect and think, how can artificial intelligence, blockchain, impact and enhance and make sustainability more scalable? What does it mean for environment or social agenda? How can technology support financial inclusion? So I think it's a really incredible combination and the great position we are in, where we can utilize something which we've been doing for so many years, being a technology powerhouse and enabling, obviously, and have a positive impact on the ESG strategy of the world.
So you've mentioned a lot of the words now. Today we're going to talk about ESG, sustainability, a little bit net zero, a lot about the people and the planet, how we're incorporating this into business. So can you see if you can unwrap or demystify what sustainability is inside Mastercard?
Okay, so in Mastercard, we're looking at 3 pillars, if you look at it, right? So people, prosperity, and planet. It's very simple. I think it's almost self-explanatory, but everything around what we do is around these 3 pillars, right? So, and now maybe I will debunk it in 2 perspectives. One is what we're doing as an organization, as a B2B, and what we're doing towards our customers and partners, if that works. And please feel free to interrupt me. I hope that people will have some interesting questions. So if you look at the what we're doing as an organization, right? So we've been one of the first organizations who committed to net zero originally by 2050. 2021 we moved it to 2040, which I think is a really great statement of the organization. But we're not stopping there. Obviously we have some short-term targets around scope 2 and scope 3, which we are trying to take down by 2025, about by 38% scope 2, and scope 3 by about 20%, right? As an organization as well, there is a lot of criticism what organizations are doing and not, and how how visible it is. So we are today present about 180 territories from a building perspective. All the properties we own in the United States are today sustainable. So they all run on solar, right? All the offices which we have are LED certified. So there's multiple things which we do, from the big things and to the small things, right? So that's around Mastercard. And then from a product perspective, right? So if you look at that, I spoke about people, prosperity, and planet, right? So on people, we have a big, hairy, ambitious goal to involve 1 billion people into financial inclusion. So make sure that people obviously are financially included. We are now by about 700 million. So we're doing really well on the target. And there are a couple of products which we're doing across farmers. For example, we have a wonderful product called Farm Pass, which enables the farmers to get paid fairly. It's also incorporating, if you're a farmer, let's say in Tanzania or in Uganda or Kenya, farming is not your only worry, right? But it's also your children. So we enable functionalities to ensure your children are properly vaccinated and you get information about the schools. Then obviously the traditional financial enablements with partnership with telco. So, but there is much more. We have also a big goal to include SMEs, which is 50 million. But out of that 25 million, we want it to be women. And I think that's a really big drive, right? So it's about that. In terms of planet, you might have heard, if not, we have a Priceless Planet Coalition, which is a coalition now with 140 plus partners globally in about 18 locations. We're very lucky in our region. We have 5 locations where we plant trees. Globally, I think we plant over 210 different species of trees, because it depends obviously where you plant, what you need to plant. And that not only restores the habitats, but also supports communities, right? We have this fantastic project in Malawi, which was started by a Belgian nonprofit called Wells for. Oh my God, I forgot the name. Please don't.
It's okay.
But what they discovered is that there are women and girls walking many kilometers away to collect water, and obviously that stops them from going to schools. They now partnering with us, with Priceless Planet Coalition, to restore the environment, because with the trees, water will come back, and then you create jobs, infrastructure, ability to farm, and so on. So that's on the planet perspective, and then also awareness, right? So we have a carbon calculator, which enables you as a consumer to understand what your carbon footprint is, and then you can take some actions, right? So these are some of the areas we're working as an organization. So as you can see, we're very serious across multiple different areas, from taking closer look at us as an organization, but also working with partners and enabling consumers, SMEs, and corporates with our products and solutions.
So one of the big challenges for many companies is this, how you integrate it into the overall business strategy, right? That sustainability is not this box or this office sitting in the corner somewhere and talking or driving nice little things, but how do you make sure that sustainability is across all of the business functions?
This is a really interesting question, right? So I'm just thinking if I should answer it politically correctly, if I should be a little bit more, experimental. So I feel that still in many companies, sustainability is something which is, I wouldn't say luxury or hobby, but in that kind of category, right? There are companies which are super, super serious about it and really have a fantastic, ESG strategies which go across their products and services, engagement with people, because sustainability is not only your emissions, right? It's your physical and mental health of your employees, their families, the people you live with. But I think that from a business perspective, I wish that we would be further than we are now, because, ultimately I would say it's probably how companies operate, right? You're not measured ultimately in the end of the day what your carbon emissions were, right? But you measured on your P&L, right? So if you are a company which needs to then prioritize between technological integration of a product which is good for the planet, but not maybe for the P&L, maybe in 5 or 7 years, and you probably make calls which are, more in the P&L direction than the sustainability direction. But having said that, you ask what to do. I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm also a learner on the journey. But I feel that from an experience and observation, it needs to start from the top. You need to really feel that the CEO, CFO, CMO, CSOs, that the CSO sits on the same position, that there are exact budgets allocated to it, and that you have a real plan. You don't need to do everything at once, right? There should be very clear, tangible actions across the organization in different spectrums, right? And many times employees don't even know what the organizations are doing. And I'm sure many of you saw the video of Apple, which just announced with Mother Nature. And this is an incredible example of that you don't even need sustainability report, right? And I think, big organizations like Apple, Mastercard, and others, we obviously are super serious about it, but I hope that there will be much more happening. But it needs to start from the top. It doesn't matter how many excited people we have on the bottom or in the middle. You can't move a Titanic if the captain on the bridge decided to go full speed in a different direction, and no matter what the guys do, on the bottom deck.
And do you hear them talk about, like, do they come into meetings sometimes and say, right, today we start with sustainability, or we start with this challenge?
What do you mean?
When you have like top management meetings, or you come in and say, we'll take a new topic today, we'll take everything we usually do and
so I think that I cannot talk for others, right? I can talk for Mastercard, and I think that we made a really great progress in, for example, today if we bringing any new product to the market, we have a process which is called Studio, and part of the Studio process is that we need to make sure that does it touch any of our sustainability solutions, right? What does it do to the planet? What does it do to the consumers? And I think that's important, that and that's like a micro process in our organization, right? So definitely in our case, we always look at whatever is coming out, is it done in the right manner, right? Building the right things and building them right. I think if you think about it, right?
Definitely. So you're known really for embracing sustainability in Mastercard. Do you have any things that you see that are more special here in the Middle East? Because it's a big company, right? Like you said, 138 different locations around the world, and you're like, Mastercards are everywhere.
So maybe I take a slightly different view on what you said, right? I think the beauty about EEMEA, which is 80 plus countries, is that we are such a diverse, right? I mean, yes, we're based here in a beautiful Dubai, but I lived in Africa for 9 years. My kids were born in Johannesburg. My husband is from there. I think that there are different priorities and different definition of sustainability, right? So if you look at countries which are not as privileged as we are here, they would look on sustainability more from a social aspect perspective, right? Safety, food safety, right? Physical safety, right? Education. And that represents a massive pillar of sustainability, because it's not just about carbon emissions, as I said before, right? So I think that what is beautiful about, and I am very privileged to be in the job because I can look at it from multiple disciplines, right? And that's probably, if you in Europe, where I'm from, Europe is in a very different position. We've been having discussion before we start the conversation. Europe is very social. The issue about food security, education, healthcare, it's not such a massive issue like in the region where we are from, right? Poverty and so on. So I think that what I like about the region here is so diverse. I think that from whoever is working here in the sustainability has this opportunity to experience and learn. What I like, especially now with Dubai being ahead of COP28, there is so many things which are happening, right? From governments making really straight commitments towards, if it's 1 billion trees, 2050 decarbonization, 1 billion meals, to support underprivileged countries. So I think it's really different from market to market, right? It's not one size fits all. And I think that we often misunderstand sustainability just for planet, right? But planet is inhabited by people, and I think that's important that we take care of that as well.
But we can also see, just you said that it's really growing sustainability, and I think everybody who's sitting here, we're on different paths of the journey. Some started yesterday and some started a decade ago. So it's constantly evolving, right? So you find new topics every year, you find new challenges. And I'm sure that something like partnerships and all of you have a very very big network. I think it's bigger than can mostly be understood by people. Like Mastercard is everywhere, right? Do you see like that there's constantly new topics coming into your?
Oh, definitely. I think that, so there are a couple, I mean, there are almost like two questions in one question. So as a Mastercard, if you look at it from our impact here, and you talk about Mastercard as a card, right? Let's maybe, but let me, let me stick to it for a second. So we have about 3 billion cardholders globally, right? So imagine, right? And going to the carbon emissions, I did some calculation, but please, this is not precise. So in terms of how much of carbon emission these plastic have, I think it represents about 14,000 trips around the globe in a diesel car, right? So, and that's very important, right? And we are partners to the issuers. We need to enable them to also be sustainable with us. So by 2028, all our issuers globally will move into sustainable cards. So that you not only, I mean, ultimately you don't want to have cards so that you don't need to have, but that there are at least, fully recyclable, or you have obviously bigger version of the cards where you have cards which are made from specific parts of plastics which are excavated from the ocean, right? So what's I think on the product side, from a partnership, we see constantly coming a lot of green fintechs who are coming up, and I think this is so encouraging, right? And we have programs here, we have programs in Europe, where we onboard green fintechs. We have a sustainability lab in Sweden, where we obviously partnering as well with fintechs and companies which are coming up. There is a lot of happening around circular economy. There is a lot of happening around carbon calculation on a product merchant and merchant level. So yes, I think that it's super encouraging what's happening right now. And obviously we love to partner. And as you said, we have a big network. And if the partner is good and strong enough, we onboard them through our staff bar program, and then they can obviously be one of our providers to Mastercard.
Yeah. So you said there's actually, like, you have the physical card, which I think many of us know, right? In different ways, we go and we swipe it, and then there's a big data part of Mastercard as well. Like, you have a lot of data around people and planet and where's money spent, and how do Mastercard make sure that this sort of like big data is used for good as well?
That's
for sustainability.
That's a really interesting question.
Maybe it's a little bit more complicated.
It's a little more complicated, right?
So
let me think about it. So maybe let's demystify the data from two perspectives, right? So number one, I think that not only for us, but for everybody else, now we never generated so much of data ever before. And so one of the key strategy for sustainability for any organization is to understand what type of data you're collecting. Number one, what type of data do you sit at? Then secondly, what of the data do you need? Because obviously more data, even though, people think it's cloud still needs a data center, right? And the data centers would obviously generate CO2, right? So I think that from a strategy, you spoke about strategy. From a strategy perspective, it is so critical that part of your sustainability strategy is a data strategy, right? Not only how can you harvest the data, but how much of rubbish data you have, you don't need. How much of data you have, don't need, but you have to store it for 5 years. But what do you do afterwards? And then also, how do you start to build data which don't have biases? Because sustainability is also about biases. We see it in today's age with AI. It's beautiful. I think I was talking last week to somebody about it, where I was doing a presentation. I used some tools, and I wanted in the video to have women in suits, right? Guess what came out? 2 women in swim costumes. So the AI didn't think that there are women who can be in suits. Obviously, we only fit into swim costumes, right? So the one part of the strategy from sustainability as a humanity perspective is super critical, that you also decide what type of data, how can you build new data sets which don't have these biases around gender, race, and many other aspects, right? So that's, I think, part of the sustainable strategy, which I feel that companies really need to look at, besides of this is so obvious, like the carbon emissions, to ensure that we build sustainable worlds, right? So, and that's something obviously at Mastercard we're looking at as well. We have now partnership with the Ministry of AI here in UAE through our divisions from cybersecurity, to obviously see how AI will be utilized in a right, sustainable manner, and obviously protect the the consumers and the partners, I think is really critical.
Mm.
And it is an important topic for us as Mastercard, but we don't collect any personal data, right? So we don't know even, your logo might, hopefully it's on your card too. We don't know it's you, right? This is something which is very important to us. Your data sits with your issuer, it doesn't sit with us. But of course, we utilize the data we have for predictability, to protect you, right? Because again, going back to being sustainable means that to protect you from fraud, right? There is a lot of things happening. So we use today generative AI in many of our tools to make sure that we build sustainable technologies which protect the consumers and the partners.
And similarly, like a lot of this data is also impact calculation. So you have a lot of sustainability initiatives. You spoke a little bit about the work you all are doing in, say, Africa, for instance. So how are you all measuring impact, and how is that, how is this data being used for you to measure your sustainability initiatives?
Okay, so there are a couple of areas, right? I think I spoke about the farm pass, for example, right? So then you calculate how many farmers, what is the utilization, how many lives you ultimately impact. The same, how many people use your financial inclusion solutions, how many people not only on board, but actually using it, right? And then we do a lot of research to understand what the positive impact is. I did about 2 years ago, I think. I don't know when was COVID? So we have a partnership in Kenya, Tanzania, and Nigeria with Samsung and some telcos, and we've been actually going into people's houses to understand, what implication this solution had, where you would get a phone from a telco, and then afterwards, with the phone, you would have a loan. And that enables you to buy, some solar equipment. And if you exactly, and there was this incredible story this gentleman told us, and I think it was in Uganda, where he said that the lions don't come anymore to eat his goats because he has lights. That really humbles you, because you start to think these solutions can have a very different impact from sustainability perspective, right? So I think that we measure obviously in terms of numbers. We do a lot of consumer research and interviews to understand deep down what the impact is, right? When you have the numbers in terms of like a carbon calculator, right, to see how many carbon emissions the consumers create through their purchases. So we always try to obviously connect it to two things: impact in terms of personal and impact in terms of numbers.
So Mastercard, of course, has a lot of merchants. You're monitoring buying behavior, but also there are a lot of customers there, and both internal and external. So your employees, anyone who's using a Mastercard. How do you all build awareness around sustainability? Because there seems to be that connect. A lot of people feel sustainability is somebody else's problem. It's not mine. So that individual responsibility, how are you all driving that amongst your key stakeholders?
Maybe let's talk about the internal first. And I just want to demystify Mastercard is obviously a technology company, right? And we obviously provide ability for the issuers to issue cards, but we are far more than a card provider. So let's look at it internally, right? Sustainability is also about diversity and equality, right? Mastercard is, I would even dare to use the word, really proud and famous around how we look after sustainability. So internally, our bonuses are linked to the performance towards our sustainable targets across the whole organization. That's a massive statement for organization. Number two, every dollar a woman gets paid, man gets paid. We have equality of pay, right? In EEMEA, 46% of our hires since 2015 were females, right? In terms of percentages, in terms of how we balance females and males, we really progressing. And and not only on a low level employees, but senior level employees, right? We run webinars around sustainability, internally, externally. We had this year, just in EMEA, we had second edition of Sustainability Weeks, where we invite experts from agriculture, from space, from finance to talk to our customers and everybody else to bring that. We run digital safari on sustainability, invite our partners, customers to our sustainability lab in Sweden to bring them to partners in Europe and Nordics, which are, really well developed. On the inside, if you thought about it, mental, physical health, we have massive amount of programs for employees, how to obviously look after themselves. So is it enough? I don't think so. But I think that there is never enough of good things, right? But definitely as an organization, we are doing many things towards our partners and customers. We're doing a lot of things internally, and there is a big commitment from top down, starting with the bonus structure and equal pay, which really demonstrate as an organization that we are very serious about sustainability. But of course, even us, often we figure out that many employees don't know what we're doing. So what we need to do, we don't just need to fix it, right? It's impossible that in such a big organization, in such a stage, you can figure everything out. And I think that would be arrogant for me to say, but I think we are in a super great, path, and we're going to great lengths to do that. And same with partners, obviously, right? Enabling a solution. We have the Mastercard Academy on the web where we create programs, if it's for SMEs or for the merchants, to teach them how to start and run a business, how to be more sustainable. So there's many areas which we are looking at.
So now I'm going to come to the critical space, and this is the space because
Should I
it's
worry?
really so it's not you personally. So I'm asking from a big perspective, not just Mastercard perspective, but we're talking a lot about climate change, around what people are doing all over the world, that we've overused resources. We're 8 billion people. Some of them are unbanked, some of them, there's a lot of happy people, and then there's a lot of other people, but basically we're using a lot of resources, right? And this comes from capitalization of resources. So my question is this, sorry, don't be worried. I'm trying to see business model wise for Mastercard. Are you talking about what happens in a world where concepts like degrowth or circularity is bigger?
So
selling less new products, selling less stuff.
I think that I can give you my personal perspective, right? Because not as an organization perspective, if that's okay with you. Yeah, okay. So I think that circularity is incredible area, right? But maybe let's start with your beginning of the question, right? I am a born optimist, right? I think that what we saw in terms of innovation over the last 100 years is unprecedented, right? We went to moon. Now we planning to go to Mars. We doing open heart transplants. There is so much the humanity was able to do in the last 100 years, right? And I think that one of our strengths is, and I don't want to sound cheesy, but we're here to solve problems, right? And that's the power of human mind and human ability. So if you look at the new technologies which are currently, right, which is the carbon absorption, right? There are multiple different trends today which operate in a different kind of level in terms of how can you absorb carbon, how can you clean it up, if you want to say, and then they use it, for example, to create fuel, right? Different types of fuels. Of course, the technology is still in the beginning, but that's one of the areas which obviously I feel the investments are going into a really great direction. Secondly, the utilization of space for energy, right? If you look at the space-based solar power energy, you can look at nuclear, you can look at solar, which is coming from sun, you can look at power which is coming from the earth inside, which can be converted, utilizing space technology, beaming it back to earth, and using it for ourselves. I think there is a lot of coming already in working, and there is a lot of coming, right? So yes, you need to, in the first part of the question, I think we are putting so much of innovation into place to be able to, I wouldn't say stop it, but putting the right things into place, right? In terms of the consumption, I feel we don't do enough. That's my personal opinion. If you look at that, and I was on a panel 2 weeks ago, and so I will use the same statistics. So I looked at the research. So in UAE here, average person buys 60 pieces of garment, right? We know the structure of the country, so probably it's 120 pieces, right? If an average garment produces 1,000 gallons of water or utilizes 1,000 gallons to do it. When I go shopping, nobody stops me and asks me, say, oh, you know,
do you need this?
You bought 120 pieces this year. Your limit is over, Andrea. You know, don't do this anymore. Nobody does that, right? So I think that there is a great opportunity in that space, right? So for example, how can I be rewarded if I don't shop so much, right? Maybe my mortgage could be cheaper, right? How can I be rewarded if I buy and sell on secondary market, right? How can I be rewarded if when I buy a car, I don't get a traditional car, but I get the electric car, right?
Yeah.
Now we are looking at it from a perspective of privilege, right? Because they always say this is a first world problem, right? It's not a problem somewhere else. But again, now let's take it to somewhere else, right? Let's take it to places which are not as privileged as ours, right? And you think, if you take a $10 bill, how much of burgers can you buy for it, or how much of white bread and chocolate and things which are fast materials, right? I don't want to attack the fast food industry, but it's much easier and much cheaper if I have 2 children or 3 children and I work with certain budget. There is no support currently, very little, to motivate me to buy more healthier. I like what Singapore did. For example, Singapore is very much aware, right? And they do many activities. I think they're absolutely brilliant. If you look what Singapore did, Singapore in the fast food places, they subsidize brown rice against white rice, because brown rice is healthier, right? For your diabetes and so on. So I think there is a lot of opportunities for businesses to promote it. There are great opportunities for government, to great opportunities for banks to build it into your banking propositions, to really motivate you to buy more sustainable, live more sustainable, recycle. And for SMEs as well today, if you look at what you wear, right? So somebody had to produce it, right? When they produce it, they probably had a lot of leftover materials. What did they do with it? Probably throw them away. But maybe there is somebody who would take the leftover materials and do something else of it. Now, when you dispose of it, right, which is the scope 3 emissions, right? I am still breaking my head. How will whoever produced the garment, right,
get it back?
what happens to it? Will it end up somewhere in Africa, just piling up, or is there a system how to track it, recycle it, do maybe something else out of it, a sofa, a bag, or a pillow, or a curtain, or whatever it is, right? Or maybe a bed, some whatever it is, right? So I feel that where I am super optimistic is that out of all these pressures, there are opportunities for new businesses to start and create new industries in order to help our planet. But maybe I'm too optimistic,
No, I think it's a big opportunity. It's just about thinking out of the box, right? Because it's big organisms, like organizations are big organisms that we need to like move them in new directions, or make them like think differently, isn't it?
So I also want to ask a difficult question. So you've spoken a lot about the amazing work Mastercard's doing in regards to sustainability, but what are the challenges that you all have faced in EMEA with sustainability, with rolling out sustainability initiatives across?
That's a nice question, and thank you for asking it. So I think that there are a couple of areas which I feel would make it easier, not only for us, but for our partners, right? I think number one is legislation, right? I think legislation often determines a lot what you can and cannot do. And I fully understand it. I think it would be great if, there would be much deeper partnerships going forward to say, ultimately we are in this together, right? It's not, so how can we make sure that whatever we're doing, we can do properly, but but there are not so many limitations what you can and cannot do, right? I think number one. Number two, I think it would be great to start to also reward companies which are actually going deeper into sustainability. Because I was a head of retail and banking for a couple of banks before, and you are driven by P&L, right? And if I have to make a choice, if I adjust my front end banking applications with something which will actually give my customer great experience and make me money, with something which is purely maybe educational, informative in the beginning, I go for the first one. Because I am measured in the end of the day on the P&L, and I think there should be much more drive in the organization to say, maybe instead of paying X% on the tax, if you dedicate some funding directly to technological advancements to drive sustainability in the organization, putting system into place, eliminate paper. It's not only for consumers, multiple different levels. So I think that what often creates challenges is, nothing can stop us, right? But the challenges which are there is a lot, how can you put things to place from a regulation perspective, inside a company perspective, to ensure you can do it, right? That you don't put it on a long burner, right? I think that's I don't think that it's very absence of wanting and knowing this is the right thing to do. I haven't seen it anywhere, but I think it's really is the focus and the prioritization, and how do you make it interesting for the companies to actually go on that journey, right? So if I'm a sustainable merchant, for example, right, my products are probably much more expensive, right? If I even want to source only locally, maybe I have low carbon emissions, but my cost per unit might be maybe 4 times the price when I source from somewhere else. How do I survive in a world that people are driven by price, right? So there is a lot of areas which, from a sustainability perspective, it's still, a lot of work to do. But for us as an organization, I think, it's limitations in terms of geographies, because not all the governments are up to speed with their legislations in terms of sustainability. And I hope COP28 will again help to move the needle forward. And there is not the unity, across what should be done, how it should be done. So
no, I agree with you. I think traditionally businesses have only focused on profit. So now adding this element of people, planet, and profit is a new way of thinking. So
I like what you call all 3 pillars.
So how do you see the role of a CSO evolving in the future?
You gave me so many tough questions. Okay, CSO. I think CSOs will need to start to become technologists. And multidisciplinary, right? I think historically a lot of the CSO roles were focused on legislation, governmental discussion and influence on that space. And I feel that if I take it on a company level, it needs to start to be much bigger than that, right? As a CSO, you need to be able to walk and talk to the chief technology officer and say, this is what we can do. This is how we need to do it, right? Let's discuss it, right? Same with a partner. So I think that CSO role will, I think, become almost like a COO, right? In the future, it will be COO with a sparkle of sustainability, right? So I feel it will go down from awareness education only the corporate level to really incorporate it into your DNA, your product. And for that, you need to understand the business. You need to understand where the money comes in, how the money goes out, what you can do and how you can do it. So I feel that it's really exciting to be in the space of the CSOs, right? Because and if you embrace anything new with the new technologies, I feel it's a great job to have, because you can really start to move the needle, but it needs to go from here to here, right? Into showing fast results, impacts, being able to navigate and influence people, right? But it needs to happen from you said business stays for dollars, right? And it needs to happen from a lens these stakeholders understand, right?
Makes sense.
So I think I will go a little bit back. You mentioned before that there was something about sustainability having KPIs, or maybe for your bonuses, like linked with this. Is it so for all employees at Mastercard that they have sustainability KPIs?
We have global KPIs as an organization, and then there are multiple categories inside, which we obviously, and from Michael Milberg to everybody who works in Mastercard, part of our bonus is connected to how we're doing. And I think it's super important.
And that's very important.
I think the first year it was, when it was prototyped, which was 2021, it was only on the senior level. Now, since last year, it's on everybody. And I think that's really is a great stand. I think it makes you proud of the organization that, you believe it. You can really move the needle if you do something like that.
It's also like there's a lot of talk about the CEO buy-in or like what we can see in many of the companies we go to, that we say sustainability, but employees feel obligated to sort of leave their own sustainability passions at the door. Like when you come in, yes, you are a person, you write those emails, you do your work, and then maybe sustainability is something you get like 10% of your job time to do something. So it's great to hear if there's like an allowance to talk about sustainability, to have it as part of your job description.
I think it's really great, you know, and we doing many, and we trying to utilize our employees as well. Like here in EMEA, we have so-called the Green Gang, you know, where we mobilize employees across, which have nothing to do with sustainability, and we use them for projects, for testings, for collecting insights from their markets, and you know, as I said before, you know, we're not done, right? This is really in the beginning of a journey, and I can't wait how it unfolds.
So sustainability has a lot to do with technology, and Mastercard's a financial technology, you know, giant. So what do you envision the future of sustainability for in the financial technology industry?
These are such a loaded question. So, okay, let's maybe take it practically, right? I think that's and maybe I will go a little bit around from where we are, but I will come back to it, right? I want to go back to health, right? Physical health. So today, if you look at it, and in many markets, I thought of Europe, to pay for your health insurance and to pay for health, it's extremely expensive. I mean, Europe is very social, it's very privileged that everybody has some social insurance, right? Many markets don't. So if you look at that, and sustainability is health of our people who live on the planet, right? So I'm really encouraged about, you know, with utilization of AI, which obviously has a lot of dangers as well. I don't want to underplay it, but, you know, dance with me for this example, right? So if you look at it that, you know, all of us have some smart watches or smart something on our wrists or ring the fingers or phones, how this data can start to be mined in order to prevent you for becoming diabetic, for becoming you for having heart attack, right? For helping you to understand all of these aspects, because ultimately that will drive also your spending behavior, right? So for all of these things, somehow you have to pay, right? So I think it'd be better when we utilize the technology, when we start to mine the data, which will be for your personal benefit, right? How can we make you physically healthier? And then by the way how you spend, right? What do you spend on will not destroy your body, but it will help it. It will also protect it. Your insurance policies might be then cheaper because your markers will be healthier, because you will decide that you spend on cleaner food, for example, right? That you will not eat 10 kilos of candy every week. I'm just overdoing it. I know that you do, right? Not that you do.
I do.
But what I'm saying is that, you know, everything connected to payment and technology is driven by human behavior, right? If you look at how could you utilize AI and blockchain, for example, and any other data, you can start to drive the way how Namrata is behaving, right? Even, you know, if you come and you only have a limited amount of money in the pocket, right? How can I tell you that your markers are so good that maybe your prediction to have diabetes is so low, so you get bonuses back from the insurance, which you can maybe expand and, you know, buy healthier food, right? Or put a solar on your panel. So I think that where I see is that I'm looking for the right English word, is that I would not say that all of these things collide together, right? Today, many of these things run in silos, right? So where I am envisioning the future is this collision of technology, our goals around financial health, physical health, mental health, and the health of the planet, right? Utilizing that, right? And I think it's for the, you know, if it's for farmers, if it's for your personal. I mean, today farmers, even if Europe is very famous now for carbon farming, right? There's Germany is doing quite, but it's so expensive for the farmer to do, right? So if you then cannot create carbon credits or solar credits, which you will be able to sell back, what motivates you to do it? If you don't live in a place like, for example, Germany or even Czech Republic, where I come from, where you get a lot of subsidies if you do this, right? In markets where you don't get any subsidies, there's very little motivation. So again, you can use technology, right, to drive this and change the behavior. So I feel that that's the future. It's how do you combine it together? How you identify these use cases where you can really impact industries or sectors or individual lives to start to move the needle.
Like I keep thinking about something like the future. You mentioned before that when you go, you can't really compare, let's say, two apples and say which one has more carbon emissions in it, or even which one is more healthy, a Mars bar or an apple, right? So it would be great that a powerful enabler like Mastercard would be able to help the consumer actually make that practical choice.
No, I love it. I always, when you go to the shop, right, and then you can see, some
Because
avocados,
it's
right?
the label, right?
And
like,
the avocados are from, from Latin America, Mexico, Kenya, this place, and then already or the destination, what the carbon emissions could be. But I think that where we're going with the technology is definitely there. You will be able to decide on a product level. Same way, like today, it is mandatory on any product label to have what are the ingredients what is the calorie intake and all of it. I definitely see this will be done for not only carbon emissions, but what impact, for example, it will have on your heart, your arteries, and so on. But so you will be able to make a decision to say, okay, if this travels for so long, do I buy it? But then the trick will come, right? Let's imagine that you will have an avocado which was grown in, let's say, Lebanon, right? And one which is coming from Mexico, right? Very far. But maybe the avocado from Mexico cost $1 and the one from Lebanon is $5, right? So as much as you would love to buy something which didn't travel so far, right? Now we're not even comparing healthy versus unhealthy, right? Now both are healthy, right?
Yeah.
But the distance, but then I can buy 5 Mexican avocados instead of one maybe which comes from the region. And that's where the subsidies from the government comes, tax relief, for maybe motivation for benefits from your issuers if you buy with local merchants. So it's again comes together because ultimately you are the person who stands in the supermarket.
Exactly.
No matter if your heart is saying the right choice is the local one, but your mind says I have this budget. I mean, I'm not in a luxury space, right? I will buy the one which is cheaper, right?
There's also been some very, like for that, comparing, for instance, tomatoes in Denmark, something like a decade ago, they had some really, really specific studies done because we all thought that it was really best, for instance, for the economy and for the environment to buy the local ones. But it turned out it was better to buy the one from Spain, even though it had traveled further, then it wasn't created it. So it's complex, right? And there's no one who tells the consumer this at the end point, like they have no way of seeing.
But there are, I mentioned we have the lab in Sweden, right? And we are obviously partnering and looking to partner with these green fintechs, right? There are a couple of fintechs already today which help companies, especially in the fashion industry, but now also in food industry, to help them to understand anything around the product from the origin, right? And of course, if food is slightly different than if it would be clothes or cars, right? Where you need to say, what is the raw material? Where does it come from? In terms of food, did you use some pesticides, right? Was it grown in vertical farming? So your consumption of water was much lower than when you would, use it normally. But definitely, I feel that's one of the areas of opportunities of growth from a company's perspective, right? But it needs to go hand in hand with some kind of education, financial support, and motivation driven by the governments.
In fact, there's an interesting question by Rishabh where he asks, how can fintech companies encourage individuals to prioritize locally sourced products, recycled products, and thrifting also maybe?
So so how can the fintechs
how can fintech companies encourage individuals to prioritize more locally produced products, more sustainable products, basically?
I think that it's about partnerships, right? I think that fintechs have one big advantage. They are super agile, fast, and can bring things to market.
Maybe the clients.
And they understand the customer because they're closer, right? The disadvantage is the reach, right? So I think that one of the key is to join different partnership models, right? If it is Mastercard or some other companies, IBM, Google, whatever your focuses as a fintech perspective, right? If you're in agriculture, you join something else. So I think join associations, join programs which are supported by the big organizations in order to get into the network. I think that's number one, right? And different depends which country you're from, right? And what the governments are doing and how they're supporting you. But I definitely think that partnership is really critical. And second, so that's more of a traditional approach, right? The less traditional approach is, I think, to look and maximize the technology which is there today, right? Which is, you can easily use today AI tools to help you to start to create viral approaches. I had just a discussion with a colleague of mine yesterday, and she said, the 15-year-old daughter just says, we need to get this because it's on TikTok, and I think they often underestimate the power of communities, right? And I feel that you can see it here in UAE, where is a lot of, or any other countries, there are always these communities of green fintechs, right? If it's of where you have no water bottles at home, if you clean without chemical materials, if you recycle properly, and then they give you some bonuses for it. But the community is still small, but it's really growing. So I think number one, be part of that community and start to do more influential things. Utilize today's technology to your advantage, I think, but get into that space of being part of it. But I think it's a very difficult task. It's very difficult. I'm not sure if I answered the.
And it's probably even about knowing their like consumers, right? Or their
and there's this famous book which is called 1000 True Fans, right? And the key is, if you do something right, do you have 1000 true customers who would be willing, each of them, to spend $100 with you a year? That you can, test and learn your business model and then start to influence, right? So how do you start with something which is really core and works really well, and then start to, expand into the area? But it is in that green tech, I think it's really hard. Plus, I think one more point before, which is that whole sustainability area, it's so scrutinized, right? Are you greenwashing? Are you doing this? Where is your index coming from? And people are very afraid of experimenting, right? It's not like making this jacket, because it's a jacket, so nobody would attack you for making a jacket, right? But if you do something in the sustainable, you need to be so careful, and there is so much of stuff which is unregulated, so it's almost like walking on eggshells many times, right? So I think that area is also something to think about.
No, I think it's very well said. Sustainability can sometimes be daunting because of the unregulation part of it. And there are many people and many companies that are starting their sustainability journey. What tips and advice would you have for companies that are just getting started and, who want to go the sustainable route but haven't done as much as, say, Mastercard?
Okay, so I will look at it more from a company perspective. As I think that what is really critical to have I know strategy sounds such a big loaded word, but you need to have a vision, for your brand, right? What do you stand for, and how do you want the brand stand for it? I think that's clear, right? Number one. Number two is incorporate it into your product from the beginning. I mean, what I wear today, it's a brand which is called The Number Tomorrow, which if you scan my QR here, you can see where it came from, who made it, which country did it travel. And one of the benefits, if you are a new company, is that you can clearly incorporate it into your production process. You can control where you take your raw materials, you can control and partner with fintechs which enable you to calculate the impact of your products and put it as a part of it, right? That's only on the product level. Then obviously you have the pillar of your employees, right? And then you have as a B2B in terms of your own emissions. But there are multiple. I'm just touching because we could be here for hours, right? But I think that you need to decide is this something which I'm really serious about? And if yes, what is the first thing I want to tackle, and where I am envisioning this to go? Do I want to be a really sustainable brand from a fintech or product perspective or a service perspective? And what are the touch points across the B2B and B2B2C journey, which expose me to something where I can improve and be more sustainable, right? I think that but one doesn't need to be, too theoretical about it, right? You can just look at it and say, what are the top 3 areas which I need to tackle, right? To look at. But again, I'm not a fintech, right? I work with a big company which has many resources dedicated to it. So if you fintech, pick up your battles.
Yeah.
Ensure how it impacts positively or negatively your P&L, right? Which market are you servicing? Who you servicing? How you can influence? I think there's no silver bullet for sure. It really has so many things to think about, right? But luckily, we living today, in an age where we can go into YouTube or anywhere else, where you can do so much of research and create what is right for you, right? Because I think it'd be arrogant for me to give advices to a startup which maybe battles with cash flow on, how to become more sustainable, right? I think that, and I don't want to be in that space.
Fair enough. This is such an exciting year for us in the UAE. It's a year of sustainability. We have COP28 coming up. There seems to be a lot of momentum. So what do you think the relevance of COP28 is to UAE as a country? And how do you see next year shaping up as well?
So I feel that it's so important for that UAE is hosting it, right? And having lived here for almost 9 years, it's incredible to see what transformation the country is doing and what are the commitments which the country is doing towards sustainability, right? My hopes, let's say personal hopes, right, is I think I really would like to see that the needle gets moved a little bit further because there are these meetings every year, right? Government officials move. There was the Paris Agreement many months ago, right? But do we really see the real impact from a unity from the governmental perspective? I think that there is still a space to improve. So I hope that because UAE has such a great drive and is in a position to make faster changes than anybody else, I hope that there will be so much more inspiration coming and that we will see real great changes in UAE as well going forward. I mean, already on the technological space, right? We are, I think, the first country in the world who had Ministry of Artificial Intelligence, Ministry of Happiness. There is so much happening on the environmental part as well. So I think from a COP28 as an event, I think it's great that they, will be discussing. If I feel that there will be a lot of coming out, let's wait and see, right? What are the actionable items which will, make sure that the Paris Agreement targets will be met. But for UAE, I am very optimistic and hopeful. I think that, it's a great thing about this country. If they put something in their mind, they just go and do it. And I think that's, and they learn as they go. So I think that that's really positive. Plus, there are already so many initiatives. So it's, it will be great.
I can't believe the hour is almost done. Yes, it's already 12:57. Any closing remarks, Andrea? Any comments?
I think first of all, thank you so much for having me. I hope that the audience enjoyed it and that, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, please do connect. If you have suggestions or feedback on the thoughts which we shared today, do as well. I think that on the journey on sustainability, we all learn us, right? And I think that's what, I think you should do what you need to do on your personal level. So change your habits. Number 2, in your company, try to influence as many as possible. And I think that number 3 is learn constantly, right? See how you can bring this collision of vision, technology, human resources, and skills together. Maybe it's a long answer, but I think that I used that quote before, Mahatma Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see, right? And it all starts with us. And, we mess up, right? On an individual level, corporate level, nobody is perfect, but I think the opportunity we have is really to do step by step and start to change. Maybe you will not buy the avocado from from Mexico, but there are other small choices you can do on a corporate and personal level, and be curious, learn about new stuff, and try to influence people inside and out.
Thank you.
That's a really nice closing statement. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being here today with us. I really enjoyed the session. I don't know where the time went by, and I'm sure all of you watching also felt the same. It's really nice to see leaders like you come and share your personal thoughts. It's inspiring, and it's also nice to see sustainability from the point of view from people leading
Mm.
large companies. So thank you for your candid sharing of all your thoughts and points of view on sustainability.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much for everyone that attended and is watching this episode. We are going to continue our business sustainability talks, so keep following us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next sessions. Anything you want to add, Anne-Marie?
No, I think that's great. Do little actions every day, yeah, and talk to each other about sustainability. Thank you for today.
Thanks. Thank you so much, everyone.